So tonight's, good evening everyone. Tonight's Zera Shimshon Shiur. It is Asarah BTeves. It's also the yard site of Meiri V'Rabbi Zechreina Levracha Reb Moshe Shapiro, Moshe ben Reb Meir Yitzchak Schusa Yagen Aleinu. So I want to also thank Sarah Salt for dedicating tonight's shiur to to my Rebbe. Everything that I know and everything I'm able to share with you, I'm only able to do because Baruch Hashem I had a Rebbe who was able to inspire Klal Yisrael. Let's light a candle, let's get a match, and let me tzinden.
Light it from there.
AB has a lighter. Baruch Hashem. You're tzaddik. Okay. Le'ilei nishmas Moshe ben Meir Yitzchak. Rabbi Moshe ben Meir Yitzchak.
No, I'm sitting here.
The neshama zal haben an aliyah. Ein licht. Yeah, it's not Friday night. Achnish kan Shabbos. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam shehakol nihiyeh b'dvaroi. L'chaim. And also want to give Yashakach to Moshe Korbman in honor of myself and those who acquire a Yeshua. Zchus of Hagefen, Atzlocha, Gezin, Parnosa, Nachas, the Zera Shimshon, Reb Shimshon, Chaim ben Menachem, and Choel, Zchus Yagen Aleinu. Okay, Marav Rabbis have a very special shiur. If not for my Rebbe Zechreina Levracha, I would not be able to share this with you. What we'll take out of tonight's Zera Shimshon shiur is mamish very special, with the Asarah Mamoris, with a shtickle Zera Kodesh, with a Marshaw. If not for the Rebbe, we wouldn't be able to do this. So his Be'ezus Hashem, I'm sure his neshama is connected to us. I'm sure that Baruch Hashem, we have 10 people here in the room, Kol Be'asor, Shchinta Shari, and the Rebbe is here with us. Gemara Soita. The episode that the Zera Shimshon is going to talk about, page Tov Samach Aleph, letter Tes Vav. Tov Samach Aleph, letter Tes Vav. We actually did this a couple of years ago. Tov Samach Aleph, but today we have new insight into the words of the Zera Shimshon. Hafl of a fella. The episode that the Gemara, that the Zera Shimshon is talking about is a Gemara in Soita. The Gemara is talking about Yaakov being taken and escorted after his Petira back from Mitzrayim back to Eretz Yisrael. Avram passed away in Eretz Yisrael. Yitzchak never left Eretz Yisrael. Yaakov Avinu, for the best of our knowledge, Yaakov Avinu was maybe the first that was nifter in Chutz La'aretz and was escorted back to Eretz Yisrael. That tradition that a person was nifter in Chutz La'aretz and gets taken back, transferred, Ken Zayin, Leah, I don't have a raya mefurish if Leah was nifteres together with Rachel in Eretz Yisrael, so she never actually left, or she went with Yaakov Avinu and then was brought back by Yaakov. I didn't find a medrash that talks about where Leah was. I'm sure it's out there somewhere, and if my Rebbe would be here with us, he'd tell us where that happened, because he would probably know. But from what we know, the first person to die in Chutz La'aretz and be brought back to Eretz Yisrael was Yaakov Avinu. What's that?
Yosef was the second.
Yosef, all the Shvatim it says. Oh yeah. It says all the Shvatim. Avadeh. They followed the footsteps of their father.
You know where they're buried?
AB haven't gone around with a tour guide in Israel yet. Dan is buried in Shevet Dan. You have to go around a little bit. Reuven. They said, oh, they're there. Yeah, they're there. Next time you go to Eretz Yisrael, mach a little bit of a tiyul. Okay, you can go to the Shvatim. They're there. Naftali, done next to Beit Shemesh. Yes, there's signs on the side of the road. Das weiß ich nicht. I don't know. Weiß ich nicht. I have a problem. I'm a kohen. I don't go caver hopping. I understand. You want to go to Levi. I'm a kohen. Ich gehe nicht zu kein Kvaris. That's why I never went to any of these European tours. Al Kopunim. Anyway, Meirav Rabbi say, Yaakov Avinu's, the trip to bring Yaakov Avinu was very, very eventful. Very eventful. The fact that Yaakov Avinu was going to be buried in Maras HaMachpelah it ruffled a lot of feathers, and there were many, many people that didn't like that. Says the Gemara in Shlita that he's quoting over here. Tana kulam lemilchama boyu. All of them. Who were they? Zuk the Gemara. Zog the Gemara. Amar Rabavo. It says in the pasuk, "Vayove ad gorin ha'atud." Melamed shikifua kesarim la'aroyne shel Yaakov. There were crowns that were placed on Yaakov Avinu's on his coffin. Kigoyrin zeshem akifin loy. Shebo b'nei Esav, b'nei Yishmael, b'nei Keturah. All of Avram Avinu's descendants. Keturah had a bunch of kids. All of them. Esav's kinderlach, einiklach, Esav himself, Yishmael, kulam bo'u, kulam lemilchama bo'u. Obviously, Esav wanted to be buried in the Maras HaMachpelah. He's the Bechor, he wanted it back. Forget about the fact that he sold it, this, that. Yaakov Avinu was dead anyway, so who's going to argue with him? And he got everybody in the family to join him. All of Avram Avinu's descendants, Kulam, all of them were there against Yosef and his brothers.
Yishmael was still alive.
Yishmael was not alive. B'nai Yishmael. Kivan shiro kisrei shel Yosef tali ba'arayna shel Yaakov. When they saw Yosef's crown, the king of Egypt, the second in command, Sheni Mishnah Lamelech, they saw his crown on Yaakov's casket, on the Oren. Something happened, and a switch amongst all of them, except by Esav, who, as we know, was still adamant and wanted to not allow Yaakov to be buried there. Chushim ben Dan took care of him. But all of his support and everybody else backed down. Not only did they back down, Notlu kulan kisreim v'tolim ba'arayna shel Yaakov. They took their crowns and put it on Yaakov's Aron. How many were there? The Gemara counts. Tana shloishim v'sheish ksarim nitlu ba'arayna shel Yaakov. 36 crowns. The Gemara wants to make a big deal about it. 36 crowns were on Yaakov Avinu's Aron. Says the Gemara, and at that point they made a hesped vayispudu sham mispad gadol koved ma'od. There was a tremendous hesped, not just for Mitzrayim, but it would seem from all Bnei Avraham. The Zera Shimshon would like to know what happened. What is the message of this Gemara? If they came to fight and they came for war, Vusam Zigezain, what did they see just by the fact that Yosef's crown was on top of this? What's the message of the Gemara? It's a medrash as well. What's the message of Vusam Zigezain? What do we have to learn from this? Maybe. Let's see what the Zera Shimshon says. Kosher. Now we begin from the words. That was the full quote of the Gemara. Kasha. Im hoisa kavanasam lavai lemilchama. Kedei la'akev kfurasei shel Yaakov ba'isam ha'ara. K'moshe kasav amar Shah. If the purpose was to stop Yaakov Avinu from being buried in Maras HaMachpelah, which was, of course, what Esav wanted. Eich b'shvil zeh nehefcha daita mimasha hoisa betchila. So what changed? Vusigeshein. What happened? Oh, what's that siphon? Give him a Zera Shimshon. Page Tov Samach Aleph. Vusigeshein. What happened? So you see Aura and the crown. They see the crown of Yosef Atzadik on Yaakov's Aron, and that changes your mind. Was tutzachdo? What happened here? V'yesh loymar, says the Zera Shimshon. Before we talk about what they saw, what was it that Yosef's message was? V'yesh loymar, second column, 3 lines from the top. The belavochi koshal Yosef. Lama hiniach kisroi ba'aroinoi shel Yaakov. How and why? What was his point? What was Yosef's message? What is this? Why is he putting his crown on Yaakov's aron? As a matter of fact, doesn't it say in Koheles, Ein shilton b'yam hamavis? Once a person's dead, there's no fight. We're good?
Is that recording?
Listen it.
No.
Okay. Ein shilton b'yam hamavis. The Sut Mishcharan. Don't worry about it. Ein shilton b'yam hamavis. V'tzarech loymar. So you have to say, Shirotza laniach kisroi ala roinoi kidei. You see where I am, gentlemen? Lirmais sheyakov avinu loy meis. Yaakov avinu loy meis. The crown on top of Yaakov's aron is supposed to teach us a message from the Gemara in Tainis, Yaakov loy meis. V'zeu siman muvak. And this is a clear siman. Shedavka hu ro likover b'maras hamachpelah v'loy Esav. From the fact that Yaakov Avinu loy meis, we're going to connect the dots in a moment. The crown is a proof that he's not dead. If he's not dead, then he deserves to be in Maras HaMachpelah. V'kivan she'oisam melachim ro'u zeh. They saw the message. Hivinu ba'atzmam davar zeh. Says the Zera Shimshon, they even understood the message. She Yaakov adainu chai v'nis yaru. And therefore they were intimidated and they were fearful and they stepped away. I want to ask you a question. Moshe just asked the question. If you means Yaakov Lemeis, it means in the coffin he was alive? Be'emes. In the coffin he was, so he was moved, so take him out. It's Nemamaros.
His teachings, his legacy.
His teachings, his legacy. It's neshama.
So these Bnei Keturah understood the neshama.
They understood the neshama. Frek Moshe. Was tutzach though?
Everything he got from Yaakov. In other words, when we quote a Talmud Chacham, we say
The lips are moving in
someone says.
That's how we agree, but especially that these Chevra understood it, all his kids are the grand.
The Olam is the.
I mean, he's the patriarch.
Let's see what the Zera Shimshon explains. That's what the Zera Shimshon is going to explain, and I'm going to explain Be'ezus Hashem Yisbarach b'mashelim datanu Rabbeinu, what our Rebbe taught us. It's a gracious sugya. Rabbi said this sugya is one of the aleph-based sugyas, mamish. It's the sugya of the soid of yichus. It's the sugya of the. So you know what yichus means? You know what yichus means? Yichus means that you have a father and a son and a grandson. So do lineage, right? Yidden have yichus. Goyim don't have yichus. Ein yichus la'akum. Lamer masber zayin. Let's explain. This is going to be the sugya of yichus. Zug the heilige Zera Shimshon vatam. Who? Shara shloisha avos. This Yisoid, we heard many times that the Rebbe is gesagt. The Zera Shimshon says it's brought down in Alas Furim. Sheya'ik tik avos tiknu hapegam she'osa Adam Harishon. Adam Harishon destroyed the human being. Adam Harishon embodied, he was given a neshama from Hashem, put in a guf. He didn't have to die. Adam Harishon was created, be it Seir Kapav Shala Eibishter from the Brain Shalaylam. Adam Harishon was holy Kadosh V'Tahor. And within the sin of Eitz Hadas Toiv V'Ra was Avodah Zarah, Gili Arayis V'Shvichus Damim. Within that sin, there was an embodiment of these. Avodah Zarah is very easy because he didn't listen to the Rabbeinu Shalom. He served the devil. He served and listened to the Nachash. That's klar. Shvichus damim, he killed himself by eating because Hashem said, "B'yom achulcha ma'is tamus."
Cause us to die too.
Says b'sefer Asarah Mamaris. V'shvachan shel, but it says the Sefer Asarah Mamaris, Chayker Din. He says that each one of the avos, he goes through each one of the sins, but he says something fascinating. Each one of the avos was misaking a different chelik of Adam. When Adam was created, it says, pasuk in the Chumash, Vayitzer Hashem Elokim es Adam, Vayipach ba'apov nishmas chayim, Vayia Adam lenefesh chaya. He put in nishmas chayim, a neshama, Vayi lenefesh, says nefesh chaya, says the Targum, ruach memalala. Says Rabbi Chaim Kanievski, neshama, ruach, nefesh. What's known as naran. Neshama, ruach, nefesh.
3 parts of the soul?
3 out of the 5. There's 5 levels, chaya yechida, which is above us, but within the tzuras ha'adam, you have the neshama, which is in the seichel. Neshama shenasata bi tahirahi. It's the most abstract, it's tahira. Even when you make a mistake, you never hurt or taint the neshama. Tahirahi. Ata yitzarta v'ata v'rosa v'ata nafachta bi, like we say in Elokai. That's neshama. Below that is called the ruach. The ruach is the koyach of speech. The ruach is the koyach which a person has, ruach memalala, the spirit would be called in English. That is more gashmiistic. You can measure the speed of sound. You can already measure it. You can chop it on a tape. You can put it on a CD. There's a gashmiistic part to the neshama, to the ruach, more than the neshama. Lower than that, the lowest level of soul that we have is called nefesh. Ki adam hu nefesh. Lo yisoichlu es adam. I let you shecht an animal and eat the flesh, but don't eat the soul. Ki adam hu nefesh. Wherever the blood goes, that's the life source. It's called, in the lashon of Chazal, shitufa de gufa. It's the shutif of the body. If the blood gets cut off in any part of your body for 5 minutes, that limb is dead. The chiyus of a person, so the neshama, when it entwickeltzach, when it comes down from above to below, and it comes from the Eibishter, it becomes more misgashem. It becomes more and more a chelek of physical. The neshama is least physical of the 3. The ruach comes afterwards, more physical, and below that is the nefesh. Ki adam hu nefesh. Now, the Adam Harishon, right, when it says a person does a sin, v'nichresu hanefashos ha'osais. V'nichresu, I will uproot the nefesh. When you do an avera, you do it with your body. If you have just a machshava to do a sin, that's a kilkul, but you didn't do it. Machshava, amol yeh, amol nish, machshava toiva, is mitzaref, machshava ro'anat, by a rosha, by a tzaddik, but it's a machshava. Machshava is a thought. A thought makes an impression, right? A thought. but it's not a maisa. Speech is even more than a thought. You can have good words, and you can have cholel lashon ra. Machshavas toivas, machshavas rois. Good maisim, bad maisim. Says the Rama Mipano, the Asarah Mamoris, Adam Arishan was mekalkal his neshama with bad machshavas, his speech with bad speech, his ruach, and his maisa with a bad maisa. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were metaken each part of the spirituality of Adam Harishan. Listen to what he says. Zokter Azoy. He says that Avram Avinu Ba'Avram Avinu, it says like this. Ba'Avram Avinu is mesaken the nafshay shel Adam Harishon, which had sinned and done avodah zarah. Ba'akedas Yitzchak, sheneker atzma al gabe mizbeach, nekad imay ruach shel Adam. The ruach of Adam Harishon. Yaakov Avinu, Va'avoin Gili Arayis, which he says we mentioned that living with his wife he did in an inappropriate way. Bezeh, and he sat in Tainus for 130 years, like the Gemara says in Erevin. Bezeh Yaakov Avinu Tikein Nishmosoi Ma'avoin Gili Arayis. Avodah Zorah Gili Arayis Shvichos Domim. It's not. We don't have enough time to go into the three pratim, but enough by saying that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were mesaken the neshama, the ruach, and the nefesh of Adam Arishan, which means, says the Zera Shimshon. Let's see it again. V'shvachan shel avos, the most shevach, that means the most. The highest, the most refined, the most beautiful of the Avos was Yaakov. As it says, Shufra de Yaakov, Kain Shufra, the way he looked was like Adam Arishan. V'loy oid, Elisha Adam Arishan heve elana de moisa la'alma. He brought the tree of death to the world. The Yaakov Tofas bi'iloina dechaya, and Yaakov Avinu was able to grab a hold of, and not just to grab a hold of, but to become the source of the Ilan dechayim. Umishum hachi iser bezoyer, and therefore the Zohar HaKadosh says, Man dechaze Yaakov becholma. If you see in a dream Yaakov Avinu, you should know you'll get extra bonus years.
How do you know it's Yaakov?
How do you know it's? I get if you're seeing Yaakov, you'll already know.
That makes sense. He was the source of life. That's why they saw him as life.
Megeit shoyin das zukommen. Chaim sha'al mimcha v'nasati lecha oirech yomim. Chaim sha'al mimcha, David HaMelech asked for Chaim, and it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I will give you Chaim. Where does the Chaim come from? From Yaakov Avinu. Says the Zohar HaKadosh, Rebbe Lazar Omer, Kol man de'ishtado be'araisa. If a person is willing to learn Torah, Hashem will give you life from above. Through learning Torah, you'll enter the world to come. HaKadosh Baruch Hu moishech aleich chayv ki hi chayecha v'oirech yamecha. Continues, says Rebbe Lezer, Kol man dishtada b'raisa l'shla. if a person learns Torah for the sake of Torah, Loi mimse al yoda de yetzer hara. The Satan will never take him away from this world. If he connects himself and learns Torah Lishma, because then the askiv be'iloina dechaya, he is connecting himself to the tree of life. V'lei arpa minayin, he never will be taken away. Begin kach, the tzadikin mishtadle b'daraisa, a tzaddik who learns Torah connects himself to a source of life, that death is not a death, but rather death is moving from this world to a higher reality. Going from this world to a higher reality. Yaakov Avinu loy meis, lomer masber zayin. Says the Zera Shimshon. Let's go a little weiter and we'll put it all together. Zozan klur. Says the Zera Shimshon. Ma'ato hoyel sha'avis tikma pegam shel adam harishon. If you understand that the aves together, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, were responsible for fixing the sin of Adam Harishon. Ken my Yisrael Kanievski keramet mir. Minarohu shiyu nikvarim etzloi b'ma'ara. It makes sense that they should be buried next to him. He made the mistake, and they fixed him up. Loikein Esav she'adarabah kilkul v'loi tiken klum. The Iker HaShevach Shal Yaakov. What Vusad Yaakov Ovgetin? What did Yaakov accomplish? Here we're coming to the main part of the Shiur. What did he accomplish? Lefi Shahaisa Mitasei Shleima. All of his 12 children stayed Jewish, and they didn't go off the derech, and they continued his mahalach, his way. He had no children that went off. Like Yishmael from Avraham and Esav from Yitzchak. Avram Avinu, part of his kids became a dead end. That's Yishmael. That's B'nai Keturah. Their life is not connected to eternity. What's the definition, Rabbi said, arichas yamim? When me wünschtun arichas yamim, what does it mean, arichas yamim? Who's mind taste? What does it mean you give somebody a bracha of arichas yamim? So people make a mistake, you should live a long time. That's not true. That's harbe shunim. Arichas yamim means long days. What's meant a long day? When you get up today in the morning and you do everything for yourself, when the day is over, the day is over. But if you did something eternal, that you connected yourself to the Eibishter, this day is never over. Then you'll have nachas from this day, and you'll nash from this day, because the day will be oirech yamim. It'll be eternal, mamish. Okay, v'oid lefi shehu gomar hatikun ma she'en ken Avram v'Yitzchak sheloi tiknu al avodah zarah v'shvichus damim v'adayin nishar gilui arayis u'bohachi nicha ma shekosav v'en Yaakov shalamed vav kesorim hem shnei pamim chai chai oilam hazeh v'oilam haba. You know what they saw when they saw Yosef's crown on Yaakov's thing, on Yaakov's kever? You know what they saw? They saw a hamshacha. That Yosef said, all of my glory comes from him, and I'm going to continue his way of life, because he connects me to a higher reality. Let's explain. Let's take 2 minutes to explain. A mitzvah, when a person does a mitzvah, what's the pshat you do a mitzvah? Why you put on tefillin today? Why you make a bracha today? Asher kidishanu bim mitzvah, because you were mitzvah me. You commanded me to do it. Why am I doing it? I'm doing it because I was told to do it. So I feel obligated, and nobody forces me. And if I didn't put on tefillin today, nobody would know, maybe they would know. I ran to daven here. I did it because I want to. And when I did it, I did the tzivui of Hashem. I did what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. So it's coming from a higher source. He told me to do it. When a person eats, why do you eat? Because you're hungry. You eat because it's a mitzvah? So do a poor heilig Yidin that eat because it's a mitzvah. But do you really eat because it's a mitzvah? Erev Yom Kippur, it's a mitzvah, this. When a person has children, how come he gets his wife pregnant? Because it's a mitzvah or because he's a Baal Taiva? If you do something, now listen, pay attention, I'm going to say it, and if you blink, you're going to miss it. And if you think you understood, think about it twice. If a man is with his wife because he wants to be with his wife, while his guf wants to be his wife, that's not a maisa of yichus. That's a maisa that starts with his ratzon, it starts with him, and it finishes with him, and it's not connected to eternity. Behemoths live that way too. They have a taiva, they act out on the taiva, that starts with them. When a person is mekayim a mitzvah, and the first mitzvah of Pru Revu is weil the Eibishter mir gesagt, and he does it for that reason, he connects that to a previous source, is shayach yichus. You can only be miyaches something if it comes from above and it goes weiter. If it starts with you and finishes with you, then du kein yichus. A guy can't have yichus because he hat nicht kein mitzvah. He's not doing it for that reason. The first person was the Torah Gedosha talks about. My Rebbe flaked this Ibr Zogen, Zechrono Levracha. When Yaakov Avinu went to his father-in-law Lavan, and gesagt, Hoveli Ishti, va'ovay eleha. Give me my wife, I want to have intimacy with her. Asks Rashi, Halei kal shebekalim eina medabrim kach. Also you go to your father-in-law, give me my wife, and say, I want to have beer with her. Right? Also Retman says, what's that?
Had this 1 week, no?
We spoke about this, but so the teretz is, says Rashi, Kidei lohokem zera niskaven. Gewollt open kinder, his kavana was to have zera, because he has a mitzvah to have zera.
Positive.
Ask my Rebbe, beseder, so it's to have zera. Obered vi a mensch. Beseder, ich weiß. Said the Rebbe, Zechrono Levracha, no. You don't understand. All he did was a maisa to have kinderlach. He was so, when he says in this week's parsha, Reuven Reishis Oini, Yaakov Leroy carry me Yomov. I once heard from Reb Nosson Weiss, he never even thought about a woman. He never even had a machshava. He was in control of everything. I feel a machshava zora, a fleeting thought, never entered Yaakov's mind. If Yaakov could beat the angel, ki sarisa like him, that means when his guf brought a child to this world, he was doing what Adam Harishon was doing koydem achet, which means he was bringing down Zera Kodesh, nicht guf Zera, Zera Kodesh. There isn't anybody in the world that you could say is on such a madrega, because you have to be malmish like a malach. But the face of Yaakov Avinu is on kisei hakovit. When Adam Harishon was brought to this world, and he was given a neshama, and the neshama overpowered the body, and the body therefore would have lived forever because the body had no mitzias other than what the neshama wanted. But then when he ate from the Eitz Hadas, he did what his own neshama didn't want him to do. He didn't want to eat from it, but yet he did eat from it. He did what he didn't want to do. He separated his guf from neshama. That's where Misa was. He created a monster. Avodah Zara, Gilui Arayis, Shvichas Damim. All of the negativity came from a body that was no longer connected to the soul. When was that fused together? When was that reconnected? Yaakov Avinu. When Yaakov says, Havali ishti va'avay eleh, Yaakov Avinu is saying, Ich mach nicht, gar nicht other than a mitzvah. What I'm doing is a mitzvah. Mit dem hat sich ungefangen yichus. In English, that's how yichus started. Because I'm not doing it for me. It's not a barbaric physical act. I'm not living with her like an animal because I have desires. I'm doing it for one reason, at the Rebbe Gezak, because my neshama wants to, because the Rebbe Nisham told me I should do that. So my guf is refused to the neshama. And the guf is doing, that's called loy mace. That's called loy mace. That means there's a fusion that will bring children that will live forever. If you can fuse your guf to the neshama and you can bring down kinderlach like that, then the Rebbe Nisham says, ich bin a shittif with these kids. That's what we said a few weeks ago with a goyim. The Rebbe Nisham is, we don't say shloisha shutfim ba'adam, there's no 3 shutfim. With goyim, there are no 3 shutfim. The Rebbe gezukt, I remember he said, shrutzim. Vayishritzi, shrutzim. With yidin, shloisha shutfim. Where did that start? Yaakov Avinu. Shiftei ka. Ish, Isha. Yud, Hey. The name of Hashem. Where? That's where it was created by Adam. But where did that go after Adam and Chava ate from the Eitz Hadas? Then he lived with his wife because he was a Baal Taiva, because the guf was acting on its own. When did the guf act in a way and do what the neshama wants? And that's why Mitasei was Shleima. That Madrega wasn't yet by Avram. That Madrega wasn't yet by Yitzchak. He was mitaking Gilui Aroyos. He was misaking Gilui Aroyos because when he lived with his wife, there was there was a physical desire. Of course, he liked her. Because there was a Mashiach, or else he wouldn't be able to be Moitzi Zera. But it's not because the guf wanted. It's because the neshama said so.
But it wasn't what he wanted.
The neshama dictated what to do. The neshama does getin, nish the guf. That the neshama should do it. You know who's a shutef with that? The Eibishter is a shutef with that. That's called Mazaroi Bechayim. You're bringing down Kinderlach with the Eibishter. You're bringing down Kinderlach with the Eibishter lives forever. So you're also going to live forever. So these kids are going to live forever. There's never going to be a hefsek of these kids. When they saw the crown of Yosef on Yaakov Avinu's dead mitah, and they saw that the Kinderlach gave his crown, they saw the Hamshacha called Yichus. They chap that there's a concept called, there's something called a legacy. There's something called as a tata mit a kind go weiter. A goy hotos nicht. Because it, and the truth is that every single yid, afiler is ya bal taiva, and he doesn't have in mind the right reasons, it doesn't matter. Thanks to the fusion of Yaakov Avinu, Allah is a Yidin. Everybody's Yidin. It's auch a mitzvah. Soll man Tag in Sinn um the mitzvah. Aber even if there's nicht in Sinn in the mitzvah, it doesn't matter. So much so, says the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, that when a person makes a mamzer, and a man and a woman, an eishes ish lo yaleinu, says the Baruch Hashem, against my will I have to be a shutif. I don't want to be a shutif, aber es a yid. If he's a yid, oter mitzvahs. And I'm a shutif. That's how much I allowed myself to become connected to the Jewish people. You know who did that? Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov asher podes Avram. He was poida alis Avram Avinu's arbit, all of his work, because he was takam mitosay shlema. Dosa given the maila from Yaakov Avinu. That's why when they saw that, they all put their crowns on top of him. They said, "You're the king." That's it. When they chapped with Yosef Atzadik, that's what the Zera Shimshon is teaching us. When they chapped that, they said, "That's it, game over." Then they Pashit gave in, and they said, "He is the king. That is the source." This was 36 crowns, says the Zera Shimshon. Chai, chai. Chai in this world, chai in the next world. They were able to see that this is the two Vayitzers. Vayitzer, state, Vayitzer, with two Yidalach. For this world, for the next world. Vayitzer is on, by Behemoth state, one Yud. Rashi says, by person says two. They chapped the Vayitzer. They chapped that this person is way above anything else they could imagine. they saw the concept of yichus. You know why there's yichus? V'amitit v'smiz mitzuvah, because ingrained in us, it's ingrained in us to do the ratzon of the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's that. Thanks to the fusion of Yaakov Avinu, misakin Gilui Arayis, together with Avram and Yitzchak, was misakin the Tzuras HaAdam. The three of them were put in Ma'oras HaMachpelah, because then the Tzuras HaAdam who messed up was misukin. Okay.
He can help us not to do